Hi everyone, where am I today? Well, oddly enough, I'm in North Dakota. Fargo, North Dakota to be precise. My husband wanted to go to the Pink concert and I didn't. So I dropped him off and I did what I wanted to do because something's really bothering me. The reason why it's bothering me is because something's not right. On July 14th of this year, so July 14th, 2023, here in Fargo, there was a fender bender. And while the officers were investigating the fender bender on the street, they were ambushed by Mohammed Barakat, a 37-year-old Syrian national that sought political asylum and became a naturalized citizen here in 2019. This is where he worked, and this is how he hoarded all of the guns and everything they got. Just things are not making sense to me how this happened. How does this happen in Middle America, and why isn't this all over the headlines? Nothing is making sense here, so I wanted it to bring to you my platform because I think that it's important that people understand what's happening. Last week, an officer in an unmarked squad car was also ambushed. He's very lucky to be alive. The bullet, they fired from an automatic weapon. I think was it teenagers? 3 teenagers, 1 female. They were suspects in a robbery from the day before where police ended their pursuit for the safety of the community. The vehicle that was involved in it was marked to be not a bolo, but it's something else where they put it for the car to be on the lookout. Is it CARS? Is it CARS or is it COPS? Something like that, where it's to be on the lookout for that car. So this detective, who was, thank God, wearing his bulletproof vest, located the suspect vehicle and he started following it. Not close, not far, just close enough while he was calling for backup. And the car routed him around into kind of a remote area near a bigger city. So I don't really want to, it was at the edge of 2 cities. It was at the edge of Maple Grove and Brooklyn Park, which is, they're not bad cities per se. Brooklyn Park is getting more and more dangerous, but it borders a very affluent city, which is Maple Grove. So this detective was radioing for backup because he had the suspect car within sight. So he didn't put on his lights, nothing. And all of a sudden, the occupant in that vehicle starts shooting at him with an automatic rifle and shot the squad car several times, making contact with the officer several times and hitting his neck, like I say. That happened last week. This happened, so July 14th, so a month ago. Okay, so 2 times in a month, police officers have been ambushed by, well, are they unseemingly likely? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And these two aren't related. I'm just saying this is what's happening in the heartland, and people need to pay attention, because if we don't, we're going to have tyranny. The riots that happened a couple of years ago are nothing compared to what's going to happen if we don't start paying attention. This is not political. It's just a plea to say, hey, something doesn't make sense. Please try to pay attention to what is in between the headlines, because more and more I'm finding that there are spelling errors in articles. There's details missing. We can't rely on the news anymore. We have to figure out things on our own. And this that I have spent so much time researching is because I'm not getting the answers. Nothing makes sense. Why did a Syrian national who's lived here since 2012 ambush police officers on a street who were just investigating a fender bender? Was the fender bender really a fender bender, or was it something more sinister? You know, you just start asking yourself those questions. Yesterday, the body cam was released that shows the moment when Mohammed Barakat was shot 21 times. And 21 times hit him. He was shot at, they figure, 31 times. And if you watch the video, you understand why. He continued to shoot and shoot and shoot. And I really had a lot of questions as to what kind of a gun he had that was shooting that fast. And I found out it's something called a dual action switch that he had on. So it made every shot that he shot double. So he had an automatic weapon that then was shooting double speed. Okay. I've just spent the last hour driving around the streets of North Dakota trying to figure out what made him snap. When I found out this is where he worked and this is where he started getting the guns and the ammo that he was hoarding, it makes more sense. I could see here, and it says right here, they're hiring. They've got a 20% discount. So, you know, with his 20% discount, he was hoarding artillery. I don't get it. I mean, why come to a country that gives you safety and protection? Why beg for political asylum from Syria and then go and ambush government officials for the country that gave you safety, that protected you? What kind of a backstabbing monster does that? I don't know, but I want to find out. It hits me close to home because the officer who was murdered, who was brutally shot down, graduated from high school with my children. My children knew him. Okay? So, just a second. One of my notes fell. You know, I had to take all kinds of notes. Ah! I shut the door like that. Okay, so we're going to go for a reporting style. Like I say, this is where he worked. Was there something here that made him begin to dislike Americans? What was it? Or did he go here so that he could go undetected, making his little horde of mass destruction? And what was his ultimate plan? There's just so much more that I think that we could find out, but will we ever be told? I don't get it. I just don't get it. So like I say, while I was in town, I just kind of wanted to drive around and get the feel of things and try to understand what the hell happened here and why nobody is really paying attention to what I think is a bigger issue here. So if you look at okay, so I'm going to put the body cam footage on my community page. What you're going to see is just as it is. And it's pretty straightforward that there was a fender bender and it was at a 4-lane road, it looked like. So 4 lanes, and let's say in the fast lane, one of the vehicles was still there because it was deemed undrivable. It looked like it was a BMW SUV, and its airbags had deployed. So it's sitting there in that fast lane, and so it's got a fire truck behind it. Now, so then it's in the fast lane, and then there's the empty lane, and then there is a series of buildings. And the way that the initial reports made it sound is they made it sound like that was the apartment where he lived that he just walked out of, but it wasn't. It sounds like those are other business buildings. More and more keeps coming out. There was all kinds of erroneous reports. So I have to go through them and then find out what they've sifted out is true. So on the video, on the body cam, you're going to see, because it's time that transparency comes out, because it is believed that police just go and unnecessarily unalive people. And while police are definitely in need of reform, what happened here is justified, and body cams are helping to break down what has always been hidden. And I think that that's an important step in reform and understanding and rebuilding relationships with the police and the public. So, July 14th, you got this wreck. You got either victims or bystanders, witnesses, who are standing there talking to the police. So you see over on the ground, you see the grassy knoll, you see it looked like two people talking to maybe two officers on the sidewalk near a tree. And then you see all of a sudden, near the BMW that's sitting there, you see officers just all of a sudden being shot at. And you see one officer who, I want to know his background, because he is an absolute hero. There's many heroes. One hero lost his life that day. 2 heroes were critically wounded. And 1 hero saved so many lives. And I want to know what his background is, because this dude is a badass. If you watch this, I have found out that he is former military, but I don't know what, because he made some incredible shots. So basically, the shooter, Mohammed Barakat, who was 37 years old, he came out and he used his kind of 4-door sedan, gray 4-door sedan, almost as a buffer for himself to kind of hide when he shot. If you look at it closely, you see that's what he did when he was being shot at. So he shoots at the officers. The officers don't see anything coming. You know, here they are, just fender bender any other day. You know, they've got a fire truck in the back, you know, blocking that lane so no one else is gonna, you know, hit the car in there. Perhaps an ambulance had taken the passenger for the BMW. I don't know about that. It looked like the other car that was involved in the wreck was in the same parking lot as the shooter drove up next to and began his rampage. And so he just starts shooting. So where the body cam shows, you just see him all of a sudden, well, and this is where I don't know if I don't know who was shot first, because they show 2 officers on the ground and they show a bystander on the ground. So 3 were shot immediately, 2 officers and a bystander, and then Jake was killed. It sounds like right as soon as he was shot. Now the shooter, who saved so many lives, the 2 that were injured, Andrew Dotis and Tyler Hawes, were critically injured, and they were still in the hospital as of the 26th, where I could see. I didn't get too much of the information on the bystander that was shot, what her condition is. But the shooter who came, I mean, who's just like I say, watch the body cam that's going to come out. I mean, the guy, Zach Robinson, absolute freaking badass. Like I say, he does have the military background, but you can see that he uses the BMW as his buffer. And he goes and he sees that the other 2 cops are shot, and that Jake has sadly been killed. So he's on the radio going, you know, shots fired, we need help, shots fired. Now, from the vantage point of the BMW in the road, he shot and disabled the gun that Mohammed was shooting from at 75 feet. That shot disabled the gun that he was shooting, the automatic rifle that was shooting so fast and shooting at everybody. Zach shot that, which could have stopped what was going on, but Mohammed was massively loaded for this. So he grabbed a 9mm and started shooting from that. Okay, so Zach's like, saying, you know, we've been shot, we need help, officers down. And then he goes and he comes out from behind the safety of the BMW, out where he can be out in the open and be shot, but he probably thought that he had wounded Mohammed enough that he was not going to be able to shoot, but he did. So he starts waving the 9mm, and you hear Zach saying at least 16 times, he's saying, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. And then you hear it, and it I do believe they said that Zach shot 31 rounds. I think he had to reload, and he did end up shooting the guy 21 times. Now, Mohammed did not have a bulletproof vest on, it sounds like. It said that he had a shooting vest. So he had magazines to shoot all over in pockets in his vest. Oh, he came out planning on this. It now says that he had been driving around North Dakota, where he lived, in an apartment nearby, and then just kind of came back and got in the parking lot and took aim at the officers. If he would have shot Zach, he would have most likely shot all the officers and then continued into town, it sounds like, because his car was fully loaded down with weapons. He had all of these weapons inside of a suitcase. After this happened, they evacuated 2 apartments, I guess, where he lived, and found more, but they're not saying too much about it. The bystander was hit twice as she ran away. Now, in the film, you're going to see this car is like just turning, and it sees the cops being fired upon, and it just screeches like it must have been coming around the corner, and sees police being shot at, and it's like, no, and it just tears off. Or was it part of it? I don't know what I would do if I was coming around the corner and I see shots being fired at officers. I don't know, but I don't think that I would just like squeal off. I don't know what I would do, quite honestly. But this monster, Mohammed Barakat, existed as a ghost. They say that in the week before the shooting, he had only made 5 phone calls. He had on his computer, on his online searches, were of mass shootings, mass casualties. And he had been going to a shooting range, and he had been there recently, or even that morning, it sounds like. He'd been going there practicing his shooting, and he had also recently taken EMS first aid classes. Now, he had in his frickin' suitcase, in the car, get this, you ready? This is what he had, and that he had been, it sounds like he had been working here to hoard. He had 1,800 rounds of ammo in his car. He had 3 long guns, 4 handguns. He had ammo magazines that 8 of them had the American flag on them. He had explosives. He had canisters with gasoline. And he had a homemade hand grenade. He rolled all of that out in a suitcase from his apartment earlier and put it in the car, then drove around, saw the cops there, and did this. It makes no sense. I was standing out here. I was going to, record more, but there are some shady people that come up here. It's closed, so I was waiting till it was closed, so I could be here in the lot, doing this and kind of get a feel for this. But I was outside, and it just doesn't feel right. There's, like I say, there's a lot of people coming and going. Maybe it's just a place where a lot of people meet. I have no freaking idea. Just kind of weird out here. But what was he planning on doing? I mean, was North Dakota going to be the new 9/11? I mean, what the hell was he gonna do? What in the hell was he gonna do? And then what did his coworkers think of him? I mean, I can't really find out much about him. No one's really talking about him, and maybe they're told not to. Now, at first, it came out that he was on a terrorist watch list, and then, like in the news conferences, they denied it. They said that he was in the Guardian watch list, and the way that they describe the Guardian is some kind of an online watch list where the public can communicate with law enforcement about people that they feel are of interest. So who knows, maybe his coworkers or somebody else was saying, hey, this dude is hoarding things and acts weird. I don't know. But the hero here who lost his life, him and Officer Haas had just became full-time with the North Dakota Police Department 3 months ago, 3 months prior. So Jake Wallen was born in South Carolina on 11/23/99. Sadly, he lost his life in the line of duty on July 14th. They had his funeral and a big, beautiful memorial for him in Pico Lakes, Minnesota. It sounds like that's where his grandparents are, but he did grow up in St. Michael. And he was a football hero. So you can find YouTubes with him playing football. I think that he did really good in a game against Stillwater. Now, he joined the National Guard, and he was deployed with the National Guard in Afghanistan from November 20th to July 2021. He had a fiance, and he had a dog named Thor. He was going to work full-time. He was great. Everybody talked about how amazing he was in his family, where he's from. It sounded like he was from the Pico Lakes or Nisswa area, and they just said that there's just so many people like him. There's just so many Wallens that, Jake Wallen was just one of many that are just that good. Midwestern, pure heart heroes. And what kind of a country are we living in that he goes and he's safer in Afghanistan, that he didn't lose his life being deployed to Afghanistan, but he does going and working in a small town police department while he's investigating a fender bender on a street? It makes no sense to me. And I don't know why this isn't something that they're talking more about and what this monster's motives were. Mohammed Barakat has no criminal history in the United States. He had, it looked like, one traffic ticket in 2018, I think is what I found. But nothing of significance. It says that there were police interactions, but they're not commenting on them. So what was going on? What was going on? What is being covered up? The 2018 speeding ticket didn't look like it was anything major. I just don't see what I'm missing here. So yeah, he entered the United States with political asylum in 2012 and became a naturalized citizen in 2019. So, I mean, what? Like I say, there's so many questions here, and I just don't get it. I don't understand how this is what I'm dealing with in the Midwest. I moved from the West Coast because I was tired of having to pay for my car getting broken in every frickin' week. We had a beautiful home in Lake Stevens, the last place we lived in the Seattle area. Beautiful home in the suburbs of Seattle. And because of the meth problem, there were little meth heads all the time. You could see when the batch was cooked. All these, beater cars from all directions would be coming down to this house down the block. Call the sheriffs. They were scared. They wouldn't do anything about it. Our backyard was beautiful and natural. So we kept finding little meth heads in our backyard. And when I went to wake them up with a stick, they'd be like, oh, I thought it was a park. No, it's my fucking backyard. Get the fuck out. Okay? But that was only on the days when they hadn't broken out our windows. And, I had a Ford Explorer. Nothing amazing. Just a safe car to have my 3 babies and total of 6 kids, 3 babies across the back. And the back window in the Explorer, which they broke out twice because it was easiest, was $800 to replace. I didn't have that kind of money. I was already doing what I could in making myself not eat so that there would be enough food for my kids. It was getting that bad because of having to fund things like that, like a window in your car, because that's what it was becoming. That was becoming a regular part of our lives in the Seattle area. So we moved from the West Coast. I got the great opportunity to go down to Las Vegas to finish law school and then decide where we were going to go. Well, I got very, very sick in Vegas, as you all know. Had to come out to the Mayo Clinic for certain specific surgeries to undo what had happened because I survived, which that was about to kill me. And when we came out to the Midwest, we were like, wow, it's really quiet. It's really nice. This would be a good place to raise our kids. Great education. What if we could give our kids an education out here in the suburbs and let them live like we did? It was essentially a time warp where kids could go to school and still have music as a curriculum and PE and art in the curriculum and not have to worry about gangs, and you didn't hear about all of the terrible things that gangs do. Lived in Vegas, and there were big cyclone fences around the schools. Gang members would have initiations by shooting up school buses. So you had to privately drive your kids to school for their best chance at not being shot at. It was just everything on the West Coast, and then into Las Vegas. It was too much. It was no way to raise a family, so the Midwest seemed right. And it was. My kids have an amazing, solid education to go forth into college and graduate school. And I'm seeing it systematically being stolen by people that have no idea what it feels like to have things that they have earned be taken from them. They have no idea what it is like to skip meals so that you can feed your children. They have no idea what it's like to have worked hard to have gotten a home. My husband was in the military and using his VA benefit to buy a house. But then to have that house be infiltrated with a bunch of meth addicts. Because Lake Stevens was once a very, very nice, safe suburb to live. That's what I wanted. And now I'm out here in the Midwest and I see this happening again, and I see that nobody's paying attention. That when you're going down the street, people can be opening fire with automatic weapons on police twice in 1 month in the heartland of America. I think that this deserves more attention than it's getting. I'm sick of hearing about the Kardashians being the headlines. This is what's important. This isn't political. The people who are benefiting from all of the NRA activism are not the ones who are part of the NRA and part of defending the Constitution. They're the ones who are breaking down our American way, one bullet at a time. And how many heroes have to die before people pay attention? Because we're heading towards tyranny if we don't start paying attention. So please start watching these headlines and try and figure out why these stories aren't important. It's easy to avoid looking at them because it's easier to watch something that's not going to be upsetting, but that's not really the answer. We have a 23-year-old Iraqi veteran that was gunned down investigating a fender bender in Fargo, North Dakota. Good American kid, played football, comes out to Fargo to raise a family, have a dog named Thor, and he's gunned down. And a witness to a car accident is also shot in that. And the ones that should be protecting her were just shot down. Like I say, I'm going to link the video that's all over everywhere because the body cam was just released yesterday? 2 days ago. Thursday. It's Saturday now. So the body cam was released 2 days ago, and I watched it, and I watched it, and I watched it, and I came up with all of these questions and tried to find the answers myself. And like I say, now that I'm in Fargo on a planned vacation, this, Hubs had bought the pink ticket quite a while ago, and like I say, I just didn't want to go and see Pink. I don't know. Just kind of, I don't mind smaller concerts, but some of the big ones, like, no, don't want to. I'd rather just do this. I don't know, go around, check things out. I went downtown. I found this cute little area where families just kind of congregate. There's like a little waterfall and stuff and ice cream shops within walking distance. And I just walked around. And I walked around and I saw North Dakota State University and the dorms and just got a feeling for it all. And just looking around and wondering, could this have been where he was headed? Could these families sitting here have lost their lives? Just looking around at a very small city, wondering what could have been, is very sombering to me. And what happened at this workplace that made him hate the very place that made him safe? Why did he come to North Dakota? Oftentimes when people obtain citizenship or they're brought into the country for safety reasons, they do put them in these small towns in America because they want them to assimilate, to learn what we're like, to make friends with Americans, to understand our way of life. But that's not what happens. What happens is people create their own little cultures within the culture, and they feel ostracized from the locals. It's important to reach out to people who are not from your country when you notice that, because nothing could be more lonely than feeling like an outsider. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe he was here as a Syrian national in Fargo, North Dakota, and everybody hated him. Everybody treated him differently. I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. I want to know why this happened. And I want to know why it wasn't prevented. I want to know how he could have gotten out of his apartment with a frickin' suitcase full of mass destruction. What the hell was he gonna do? How many people could have died that day had Zach not stopped him? Can you imagine what would have happened had Officer Zach not, like I say, when you watch him in the the body cam, when you watch what he does, you're gonna be like, whoa. And I guess the whole thing only lasted like 46 seconds, I think is what they said. But that 46 seconds when you're watching it seems like much longer. But 46 seconds to him was probably a lifetime. And for him to run out from behind the safety of the vehicle that was essentially, creating a buffer for him, he ran out there and he could have been killed. And thank God he wasn't. I want to find out more about Zach Robinson. I want to find out, what kind of, was he a sharpshooter? What was he? Because the shot that he got, he shot at, like I say, he shot at the initial rifle that the guy was holding with the double switch. So he disabled that. I mean, for him to go and disable the weapon and then to sit there and say 16 times, drop your gun, drop your gun, drop your gun. When you watch this, you're going to see how many times he gave him the opportunity to not continue to shoot, to not continue to pose a threat before he had to be executed. He gave him every chance, even though he had just killed his partner. He had just shot down 2 other cops. He didn't know were going to live. He had just shot down a civilian who was running away. And he went around the car, and he went around, and he got as close to him as he could. And he continued to try to shoot at him. Mohammed Baccarat was not going to stop. He wasn't going to stop until he killed as many people as he could. Why? Just think about the person that moves in. Think about being friendly to them, because you might stop them from feeling like this. Maybe it was always in his head, and maybe that's why he went to America, because he hated Americans from something young, and it was his goal. I don't know. But something doesn't make sense. Something doesn't make sense. It's not sitting right with me. I don't like it. Have you even heard of this? That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering because so many of you are not in Minnesota. Maybe not even in North Dakota. Maybe not even in the heartland. Maybe you're in other places in the United States. And I know that I have friends around the world who listen to me. Have you heard of this? Did you know this happened? And it has nothing to do with him being Muslim. The local Muslim community and church, sorry, it's probably not called a church, it's the mosque. The local mosque here in Fargo was asked to handle his, I don't know if you call it a funeral. I apologize. I just don't know what you call it when you're Muslim. But they asked for, because Mohammed Barakat was Muslim, they asked for the local Muslim community here in Fargo to take care of this and handle his memorial, and they refused. They said, he's not our Muslim. He's no more Muslim than a Lutheran is a Christian. He's not ours. They didn't know him. He wasn't from their community. They're not taking responsibility for what he did. They wanted nothing to do with him. He existed as a ghost here. If he existed as a ghost here, came in here for political asylum, why wasn't somebody else watching him closer? They don't know if he came into America with a family or children or anything like that. It's Fargo. No one's going to say anything if they do know. Until you ask them. Because once you get asked somebody, if you ask somebody the right questions, they will go on and on and on. But they're not going to start a conversation. That's what I've learned. So, who knew what was really going on? And again, if you see something, say something. Check out The Guardian, see what it is. 1-800-FBI-TIPS is a great resource. If you call 1-800-FBI-TIPS and they want further information because it's all automated, they will call you back and then they can route it. If it's something to do with arms, firearms, you think somebody's going to do some horrible thing like this monster did, you call the ATF. But if you can only, remember the 1-800 FBI tips, just call them. Just call them. So on that note, I will end. I hope that you guys all, I hope that this didn't upset you. I don't mean to bring anybody down, but I do think that this deserves attention. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.